right, when we left off, I had mistakenly laid down this mat before I placed my magnets, and so I want to show you guys how I solved the problem, and then caution you, don't do what I just did. Don't lay down this mat before you get your magnet behind it. Okay, so I'm going to turn my book sideways and show you what I did. So that's the top magnet. There is a magnet under the mat now, and I'm looking to see if you guys can see this slight gap that I have now in the mat. And I'm going to show you how I did that. I used my pick tool and eased it under the edge of the mat, pushed forward, opened it up just a little bit, wide enough to get my bone folder in there, and then I used my bone folder to push a magnet up to where I need it. So now there is a magnet underneath this mat. It is not my preferred method, but it's there, and hopefully you didn't have to go through this. You caught my message before you laid it down, but if not, this is a workaround. Another workaround that I sometimes do, especially if I don't have success pulling the mat up, is putting a sticker or something here, something ornate, to cover up the magnet that's actually now under the mat. I didn't have to do that, which I'm glad. So now that magnet's in, so the next thing I need to do is figure out how to completely close this new opening that I have. And I want to try to get some glue in close to where the magnet is and lay it down this way so that the magnet doesn't want to slide back out the bottom. It's not likely to do that because this is going to be adhered to a tag, and every time it comes across, it's going to want to marry the magnet behind the mat, sort of pulling it and keeping it in place. So I'm going to push some glue right inside the opening, and then I'm going to use my pick tool again, and I'm going to just push some of that glue toward the magnet. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get some of it in there. And then make sure there's glue right up to the edge, and then press it back down, and voila. Unless you saw me do that, you would never know that's how I achieved it. So that's in now. And now I need to find the location for the magnet as it relates to this tag, so we can get the tags installed. So there should be 2 tags. Here it is. Okay. So there'll be 2 waterfall tags like so. And that's plenty of attraction, so I'm happy with that. Now, one of the things I want to show you that I didn't realize at the time when I was scoring, and I see now, so you might want to consider this, is I just scored my typical 1/2 inch, which I normally do. But what I found is if I butt this tag right up against this 1/2 inch, it's actually overlapping the grommets a little bit, which is creating some unnecessary bulk. So I'm actually going to slide that over a little bit, and in looking at it, it looks like I probably could have scored at 5/8 instead of a 1/2 inch, so a little bit over a 1/2 inch, so that the grommets wouldn't overlap. So the way to figure that out for you is get your 2 unscored tags, lay them next to each other, butt it up against where you want it when it's laying flat. So that's where I want it. I don't want these overlapping at all. Flip it over and draw a little pencil mark at the edge of the bottom one. Draw an edge or a pencil line here, and that'll become where you want to score. I didn't do that because I was thinking it was about a 1/2 inch, and I was off a little bit. So I can either stretch these apart, which is what I'm planning on doing, or rescore the bottom. And because I'm not doing a slit and tucking my flap underneath the mat, I'm not going to rescore because you would see that here as it's laying down, and I don't think that would be very attractive. So I'd rather have a little bit of a gap than to have a secondary score line. Although, having thought about it, I don't know, I'm going to do one or the other. Yeah, I wasn't planning on covering this flap, but if I do a second score line, I would definitely cover it to help mask that I have a second score line. And I really only need to do it on the top one because this isn't overlapping anything. I'm kind of going back and forth. Well, for now, I'm going to set it aside and come back to it. I still need to cut dies for for the top of these tags anyway. So we'll come back to that when I'm in the embellishment phase, and I'll show you how I laid these down, if I added a second score line or if I just parted them a little bit. So there's two different approaches there, but I definitely don't want these to overlap. I think it's too bulky. So, especially since I'm planning on putting ribbon in them anyway. All right, so that's how I solved this problem. This page is done now. So we're ready to go on to, sorry, I was getting hung up in my spine a little bit. We're ready to go on to page 6, and it's going to be the same design. I'm going to have 2 flaps down here, and we're not going to make the same mistake. We're going to put a magnet on the back of this before we glue it down. So this is going, am I going away? Yeah. So these are going to point out. Is that what I decided? I think it is, yeah. I could have done it either way, but these are going to point out. So this hinge will be toward the spine. And I just want them centered, so I'm going to kind of figure out where, and the reason I'm looking for placement right now is I want to figure out where to put the magnet on the back of this. And I don't want it centered on the paper because the paper is actually larger than the exposed area. I want the tags centered on what's exposed. I think there's almost another inch beneath the flap. So I'm looking to center it on what you'll see when you open the page. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to draw myself a little reference line here for later. And I'm always using a pencil so I can erase it later. So I put a little reference line here, and I can actually see now it's crooked, but I'll straighten that up because I know that's roughly where I want it. So it looks like it's drooping a little on this side. So I'll straighten that up before I glue down these tags, but I now have enough information to figure out where I want the magnet. And the magnet on the flip side needs to be below the grommets. So that's roughly here. So I'm going to use my grid to help me out a little bit. So I'm looking, this one 2 inches up and about 3 inches down. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over this way. So I want to come in. I want to come in 2 inches and go up 3. Is that right? Let's double check that. Come up 2 inches, that's right, and come in 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's about where I want it. So I want it at the intersection of 11 and 2. I'm going to tape this down. I think it's right where I want it, but I'll double check. And you can see it looks a little low, and that's because part of this is going to be covered by the top flap. And okay, got my tape. All right, so now I'm gonna flip it over, lay my tags down, plop a magnet on top, and see if it goes where I think it should. And when I say where it should, all I really want is I put this in upside down, so it's gonna go that way. I can tell because there's my little cheat line. I lost my train of thought. Oh, I just want to make sure the magnet is clear of the grommet and of any of the edges that are going to be exposed once I get the mats down. And it looks good, so it's not perfectly centered, doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see it after you get the paper down. So the good news is we now have our back magnet on, so we are free to glue this down whenever we feel like it. And then we'll recheck for the placement of the mate when we're ready to lay down the tags. So let's get some glue and put it down. So this is what I should have done on page 5. So hopefully you guys read the big bold letters that said, wait, don't put the mat down yet. This is how we should have done it the first time. And I realize this is my second mistake in the album. I guess I'm distracted, which is not good for you. Okay, so that is in. Now I know it goes this way. I'm just looking for my right orientation. There are some words on here. And then I think I forgot to dry fit this, but I did it last night, so I feel pretty good about it. Lovely. Okay. A little crinkle there. Okay, that's in. Yay! One less piece of paper floating around. I'm just burnishing the edges real quick. Get my glue cap on because I've been drying out. Okay, and then this piece is going to overlap a little. Okay, so now that we have, you know what, I realized I put the I put my line up on the bottom side of the paper, so I'm going to erase that. Well, let me measure it first. The yellow line, okay. It's hard to see. Okay. This, I think, is where it was. I'm gonna double check one more time. One, two, three. I'm just counting the lines. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm right on. Okay, so that's where I want my tag. The bottom of my tag. I'm gonna erase this. And this is just a kneaded eraser, which I think does a great job. Doesn't leave a lot of residue. And it doesn't tear the paper. Ever. Okay, now we need to figure out the placement. So I'm gonna eyeball this, and then I'm gonna put a little cheat line on the back end. And it's easy to figure out where this one goes because I just want to make sure it's not overlapping. And I want to do this with this closed so I get the full effect. And I think that's pretty close, so I'm going to inch it over just a bit. Okay, that looks good. All right. There's my line. I'm going to put the this tag directly on that line, so it needs to come down. So I don't have to worry about erasing it. Okay, and I've decided since the previous page, I am just going to lay them down with the score lines as is. I just know I have to pull this one forward. Normally, I just plan my second waterfall off the previous one, and I know if I do that, I'll have overlap. So you either have to decide to live with that or live with the little bit of space that you're going to create. So you're going to have to do one or the other, or score them correctly the first time and learn from my lack of planning. What am I doing? I need this and my pick tool. And I think I'm going to have to nudge this into place, so I'm going to use some glue on top of my tape to give me a little bit of wiggle time. And I'm not trying to be super perfect, but I do want to use my guides. That's a little too low. Okay, that looks good. That's in. Okay. And like I said, we can't do this because we'll overlap. So we're going to have a little bit of a space. And I think I might come back and put a decorative strip. I haven't decided. We shall see. Not something I'm going to do right now. Definitely come back and do that as part of the embellishment phase if needed. Okay, so I'm going to take the tape off and add glue because I know I'm going to have to slide it into place because it's too hard to put a reference line because I need this closed to see where it goes. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure they're mated up this way, and I'm just pushing it down until the two grommets meet, or the top of the tag meets the bottom of the grommet. And I'm going to ease it down and into place. That's it. We're in. Now we're ready to add the magnet. Isn't it easier this way? I don't know what I was thinking earlier. We are in. So we are going to want to attach it to this. So we're going to get our fat tape out, which I didn't have the benefit of using because I had to lift the other mat. Dummy. Some days I wonder, some days I feel like I've never made an album. All right, so there we go. So that is in, and then we'll put a nice beautiful mat here and cover all that up. All right, so again, we've got a magnet underneath this mat and then one on the back side of this tag holding it all together neatly. And that is that. Now I need to go figure out what I did with these pieces of paper. I had so much going on before. When I took a break, I kind of left things jumbled. So bear with me. So I think I had, nope, that's too big. Maybe. This is certainly cut to fit here. And these two pieces are gonna go here. So my options are that. Is that an option? The green looks a little too small. Oh no, the red's too wide. That's what it is. So that's an option. Let's look at it this way. That's an option. Definitely like it this way better. That's too much. Here's another option. The green pattern and the red. And I'm kind of liking that. And then our last option is this. Which works, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm crazy about that. I think I like the red and green. And if that's the direction I go, I know I've got some of these red strips that came, let's see if that looks good. Red strips that came off that one cut apart page. Could use something to even further distinguish the divide. Sorry, I am just so slow today. I don't know what my dealio is. All right, what do I think? That's one option. So the other is to put the red on top and the green on the bottom. And that, I don't know. I wish you guys could talk to me. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I think I want the green on the bottom. No, the green on top and the red on the bottom, like so. So I'm gonna trim. It looks like I need to trim these down just a little bit. So I'll do that real quick. 7, so 6/8. Is that right? Yeah, there we go, 6/6. So this is a 7-inch flap and I just trimmed this down to 6 6/8. So that gives me a 1/16 inch border when I place the paper. Yeah, I like that. I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm gonna lay this down and then figure out what I need to do with the red one in terms of making it narrower. So I'm gonna turn it upside down so I can see the 3 edges of the green piece before I lay it down. And I can see I have not inked it. So we will go over that real quick. And I don't know if it shows up on camera, but I'm always raving about these ink pads because I really do love them. And I'm inking it and I'm handling it. It is not transferring onto me. I've also not had problems setting my paper down too soon and having the ink transfer to the cream. I mean, I just can't say enough about these powder puffs. They are wonderful. Now looking at this, it's a little tight. I'm taking off a little bit more. That's why I turn my book over so I can see these edges more clearly. It means I need a little more ink. I think that'll do the trick. Yes, sir. We are ready. It's so hard for me to cover this pattern up, but I think there's too much of it on this page. Okay. Just before I laid it down, I was rethinking my design decision. Oh, that's awful, isn't it? When you get to this point, you're still trying to redesign. Okay, so now I've got a good amount to measure here. And I'm gonna do what I did earlier. I'm just gonna push this straight against the green. I'm gonna put a tick mark, and then I'm gonna back off 1/8 of an inch. And that will give me a 1/16 of an inch on either side to center this on. And it's gonna be a tough one because I'm inside that 2-inch mark, which makes it hard for me to hold in the trimmer. But we will do it somehow. Okay, so right about there. All right, I'm not feeling good about this. It didn't feel very confident when I was cutting. Oh, I made it too narrow. Look what I did. I haven't done that in a long time. So as you can see, the distance between the two is just too wide. I can't live with that, so I'm gonna have to trim another piece. So there you go. Luckily, I have another piece. I need to take my tick mark out. Okay, and it looks like I know what to do. Oh, you know what? I missed my mark. That's why. How about that? I overlooked it. I missed my mark. I'm not feeling very insecure about this, so I'm double checking. And I want, oh, I think that's right. So, might have to do this a few times, so bear with me, folks. I'll try this. Not quite. A little bit more. I'm mumbling to myself, sorry. All right, 10th time's the charm. See, that looks, okay, I can live with that. It's still not perfect, but. Get some glue in here. I gotta take a little bit off. It's just not right. Sorry, guys. It was it was too wide. There we go. There we go. I can live with that. Let's get it in. No more changing your mind. That is one strong magnet. It was hard to pick it up. Okay, so make sure there's glue under that. There is. Okay, now I'm turning it right side up again. And then we'll take a look at the B side and get these laid down. Okay. All right, so we have this. We have some green, which I really like that, but I need to decide what to do up here. And I did trim this, and I guess it's okay. I guess my real issue is I'm not fond of this pattern. To me, this looks more orange than red, but when you have some degree of separation, like with this, it helps. That's way too busy. So while we're here, and you guys have no place to go or nothing better to do, I am going to run through some of my other options here live. Oh, that's the wrong orientation. That would have worked, but the joy of the world is going this way. It needs to turn, so that won't work. I do have a little bit of this left, so I could cut this out and leave a full piece of green here, because I'm pretty sure I can find a wider piece of green. And I think, yeah, it's too short. I could use blue, but I don't think that's the right answer either. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna trim this out, and I'm gonna trim this out, and that's what we're gonna have. We're gonna have this alternating pattern. That's my decision, I'm sticking with it. So I need to trim this down to, what am I trimming it down? 6 7/8. 6 7/8. And it needs to be, let's get this figured out. There's my little cheat line. Perfecto. Okay, so that's going to go in here. So now I need to measure that. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this and get it down, so it's just one less piece of paper floating around. And put away some of the papers I'm not committed to using at the moment. Yeah, so ink and glue. Ink and glue. I don't know, I thought I had a plan for this page, and then when I sat back down, it just didn't come back to me. Here we go. So, since I don't really need to focus too much, because I'm going to lay some glue down, I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in and, you know, taking your time and sharing it with us here at Scrap and Create. We really appreciate it. We are a very small company in San Diego. It's Julie and myself, and occasionally we have a guest designer, but really it's a two-man show. We operate out of Southern California in San Diego. Julie is retired out of the financial sector, and I am retired out of the information technology sector. I used to work in semiconductor for a number of years and retired early to help usher my son through school. And we are neighbors. We've been neighbors for 20 years. And we met when I invited her over to scrap at my house. And that's when she first discovered scrapping, and she's been scrapping ever since. I kind of set it aside for a number of years while my son was in his primary ages, where I was just way too busy spending my time with him and running him around. You know what? I could have done a little bit better job. That's a little bit of a gap, more than I was expecting. So I might come back and cover that. But for now, it's in. Anyways, we a couple years ago decided that we wanted to give this business a shot, and so I like it. It keeps me on my toes. I love talking to all you guys and answering your comments every day. I do my best to, you know, reply within a few hours, a couple of days tops. And sometimes I miss things, which I feel horrible about, but I do go back and periodically even look past, you know, into previous weeks just to make sure I haven't missed anything. So that's enough about us, but I just thought I'd share some of those details with you. And I guess what I was alluding to and didn't actually state is we have an online store. It's an online store only, and it shares the same name as the channel, Scrap and Create. And everything you see us promote here on this channel is available in our shop. We don't carry some of the typical craft items that you could just buy at any of the big box stores because we just can't compete with Joann's and Michael's. So we try to carry more specialty papers that are a little harder to find, but worth looking for. So we hope you give us a shot when you're shopping for your papers. And then some of the staples as well. So we always have tape, glue, tags, and we'd love to hear from you. So tell us what you want to see and we'll do our best to get it out. This this album, one of our subscribers and I were chatting, and I told her I was getting ready to do the Christmas album. And I just asked her, well, how many pages do you want to see and what size? And so, you know, if you guys have some preferences, let me know. So Lynn, that's a shout out to you. Thanks for always tuning in and giving me good advice and kind compliments. I'm going to put some glue on this, I was going to say button magnet, so that I can slide my mat into place. A little too low. There we go. So I always design inside my book, and part of that is teaching is a different animal than just doing your own scrapbook. My recommendation, though, is always to design and construct your pages outside the album to reduce wear and tear on the cover, but also you get to work on a flat surface and it's easier. And if you're only going one page at a time, you don't wind up with all these papers. But I'm in the you know, my goal is to have a completely designed album when I sit down that we're constructing. And really the only way I can do that is to design it and temporarily attach these things. And I found when I was doing that outside the book, it got really complicated really fast. So I've decided the best way to teach is for me to put it in the book and show you one page at a time. But like I said, this looks pretty darn close. Hey, oh my gosh, I have one I don't have to trim. Somebody take the date and time down because it's history in the making right here. Yeah, I would do it on a flat surface. I think it's just easier. So let's see, what else can I talk to you guys about? Oh, I want to talk to you a little bit about how I cut my paper. So I cut everything on a trimmer, a rotary trimmer, and I use Caterpillar, and I mentioned that earlier. Somebody had asked me for cut patterns, and we don't do cut patterns, but I can just tell you what I do on every album. I plan all my flaps, and then I measure out my paper. Every single piece of paper that is going in the book, with very few exceptions unless it's fussy cut, is cut on a trimmer. So it starts as a 12 by 12 and gets trimmed down. So if it's 9 by 7, I've got a 7-inch piece of paper, 7 by 12-inch piece of paper, and then some scraps. So if you use a trimmer, you don't have to worry about cutting through the bottom half of that 12 by 12. That's exactly what I'm doing. You're gonna have enough paper. And that's why also I do some piecing, is because of the way I cut through paper. I had tried doing it the other way, where I would just cut out the 7 by 9 piece and leave the L shape and set it aside to use. Oh my gosh, that takes forever. And when you're trying to do one album a month, it's not happening. So just so you know, I mean, you're welcome to cut that way. That's not what I do. And if you just cut straight through the paper and set aside your scrap, it will get consumed in the form that it comes off the trimmer. So you don't have to worry about that. I think the only pages I ever sort of cut the middle out of, and I don't even always do this, is the cover page. So the cover of my albums is always going to be something less than 12 by 12. 8 by 8 is pretty standard for me. So the image that is on the signature page isn't neatly in the 8 by 8 corner. Oftentimes I'll have to cut around to get to where I want. Otherwise, everything else I just put in the trimmer and, you know, mark off 7 inches and trim. So there you go. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more confidence when you're cutting into the paper, that you don't have to worry about how you're cutting into it. You will have enough to cover exactly the way I'm doing it. Okay, so enough about that. So I think I got to turn this so I can see all the edges. I think I dry fit it, but it really needs to be trimmed down a little. So I'm going to take one edge off and then take another look side to side. And I need a contrast in here so I can see the edge. And that looks good. I'm happy with that. Am I? Am I really? No, a little more. Okay, and some ink and glue, and we're ready to cover this pocket. Let's get this tape off and some glue on top of it. All right. Now this pocket, and I talked about it earlier, but I'll mention it again. This one actually has 3 gussets on it because I want it to hold a lot of stuff, and because it has an opposing flap that will hold everything in place. The other pocket that I put in the album, sorry, I'm making sure my words are going the right way, doesn't have an opposing flap holding everything in place, so I made that tight. And what I mean by that is there's no flanges, it's glued directly in a single piece to the page, because I want it to be tight. I don't want there to be any extra room that's created by having these gussets, or not gussets, flanges. Okay, yeah, all the words are going the right way. And that's in. And it looks good. Okay. All right, so the next piece is going to be up here, and this green is a little shy of my full length. So I guess I don't have a piece of paper cut for this because I opened it and there's nothing here. I think I was considering this, but I don't know if I like that. I guess it's okay. Oops, that's upside down. Yeah, I think I'm good with this, and here's why. I'm gonna put the green in between. This is going to be a pocket full of tags, which will be colorful in and of themselves. So something simple here is perfect. And this will be a little busy on the other side. Okay. I'm going to trim out, I think I'm going to trim out a piece of paper. First, I'm going to look and see if I have any of these cut apart strips. I'm having a hard time picking that up, like this in green, that I might be able to use on the top or bottom here instead of trimming out another piece. And I do have something that might work. So here's an example. So I could either put that here, which looks lovely, or put it at the top, which doesn't look as lovely next to that. So I think that would be the direction. So there's one option. There is another option. I think this stops right here. There's another option. which I kind of like this because it pulls in the red from over here. I guess this does too, yeah. Just in a different way. So I think I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I'm gonna trim this down and bear with me, I'm just checking to see if I have any other options. Here's another option. Similar, but it has the gold background. And I like it even better. So good call by me. Okay, so I'm gonna trim this down to this length of paper and get it installed. And we know this is 9 inches. So it needs to be 8 7/8. There we go. And that should do it. And we need to ink it and lay it down. Beautiful. And I'm gonna have it go as close to the top of the pocket as I can. Lovely. That's it. Let's ink it and glue it. And this is again a strip from the cut aparts, the 12 by 12 cut apart. There's also the same same image in the 8 by 8, but it is super tiny and also not 9 inches, so I can't use it. In fact, for the 8 by 8, I didn't cut apart anything. To me, the images were just too small for this size album. It would work on a 6 by 6. Some parts of an 8 by 8, but 9 inches was just too long, and the print was just too tiny. So speaking of which, everything you see in frame right now is from a 12 by 12, either pattern or solid or the collection. There is no 8 by 8 paper here. I'll probably be using 8 by 8s on these tags. I tend to go through, design my album with my 12 by 12s first, and use all 12 by 12s on the largest pieces, and then come back and cover smaller things like tags or small flaps with the 8 by 8. And I'll also use the 8 by 8s to cover the inserts. And of course I'll have to add pieces to it because it's broader than, it's taller than 8 inches. Okay, so by doing that, this is now too long, so this needs to be trimmed out about 1/4 inch. Let's give that a shot and see how we do. Okay, I want a slight gap between these two. I think I want to expose a little bit of cream. Yeah, so I need to take a little bit more off. A little bit, about a 1/16 of an inch. There it is. Yeah, do I want more? Yeah, a little more. Okay, I think that was the last one. That's it. There we go. Happy with it. Okay, good reason to have your trimmer handy always, and also have some patience because it's worth trimming, repeatedly trimming rather than cutting it too short the first time. Okay. So again, when I come back to do the embellishment phase, I will add lots of lovely things to put in this pocket, but we won't be doing that now. Right now we're just trying to get the book covered. Okay. Lovely. Okay, one more big piece here, or pieces. Clear up my workspace. Okay, so this is what I was considering, and I'm okay. This is growing on me. So I'm going to measure this flap. Sorry about that. My ruler was magnetized to the camera. So it's 6 inches. So I'm trying to be cautious. I don't want to over trim. Is that right? Yep, I won't. Shifting this so I can get a little bit better light. Oh, it's too long. Limit in length too, or height. Okay, right, we're right on, just like downtown. Okay, I'm going to ink this. I'm so excited. I'm anxious to find out what, I wish they would give us more of a heads up, what Graphic 45 DCE for Christmas is going to be. I'm ready to know what that is. So I called out for sizes, what you guys are interested in, but it's most, if I don't hear anything else, I'll probably plan an 8x8. I have a pretty good system for DCEs with the 8x8 size. So when you do a DCE, remember you don't get patterns and solids and you don't get ephemera. So I've kind of got that design idea in my head, and I know how to make a DCE stretch on an 8x8. Anything larger, and you're definitely going to get into where we have to have 2 DCEs for the project. So that's just something to consider when you guys are thinking about what size you want to ask of me. So for example, the last 8x8 I put out was a DCE, and it was the Magic of Oz. And that took 2 DCEs, and at the end of the day it was really 1.5 DCEs. So I have half of one of my DCEs left to do a small project. But I couldn't really just do one, just because of the way I designed that exploding flap mechanism. I mean, I couldn't get away with just one DCE. I didn't have enough paper, unless you start to pull in coordinating cardstock, which I don't do because we don't sell cardstock. So I'm really, motivated to really showcase what we sell. But if you are trying to economize, one of the ways to do that is get your designer paper on your A side and cover your B sides with coordinating cardstock. That's one way to do it. Because when you land on the page, you have all this beauty, and then when you open it, you'll have some base cardstocks. But this is typically where your photos are going to be. A lot of times you're not covering this anyway, or at least not with photos. So you really want to showcase the paper. And if you're going to cover a good deal of this up, those are the patterns that you don't feel that strongly about. That's my thought process. But on a piece this big, I probably would put a photo in here somewhere. And I would definitely put a photo up here. So this is 4x6, so you could easily put a slightly cropped down 4x6. Actually, it's larger than 4x6, but it's meant to hold a 4x6. And you could do a 4x6 here pretty easily. 3x4s, 2 3x4s, that would work. All right, so I'm going to tuck this in here because I know this card is going to get used somewhere between these 2 pages. So finally, we are done with page 7, 8, 9. Oh my gosh, yes, we are. Okay, so it looks like, and I'm hopeful I did a better job trimming things down, so it doesn't look like I have to work so hard to trim everything out for this one. You know what, before I move forward, let's back up and put these down, now that I know what I'm doing. I say that, but you guys know better, don't you? All right, so I'm going to set aside this magnet and figure out where I'm going to put this. I want some glue to allow me to maneuver. And then we won't have to come back to this page again for a while. Yeah, this way. Okay, so I'm only putting these together right now because I need to figure out where my edge is. I didn't draw a line. I looked at it visually, but I got to do it. I kind of got to go through that exercise again. Okay, that looks about right. Is it? I think I'm going to nudge it a little more. Okay, that looks good to me. And it also looks, it's a little bit drifting. Is it? Didn't quite get in straight. There we go. All right. Now this one, we just close this flap, slide it until the grommets are not overlapping each other, and then we'll put it down. So we're going to start straight up and down, slide this until the grommet meets the top of the tag here. Hold it together, together, and lay it down. Press it into place. We're done. Okay, now the last piece is to locate this magnet. There we go. Press that into place. And again, this is the one where I made the error in the first place, which made placing the magnet so much harder. So I did wind up sliding it actually under the mat, and it feels pretty secure. Pretty happy with that. That doesn't always work out. Sometimes you actually tear the paper. So if you're going to approach it the way I did, if you use tape, it's a piece of cake. Just use your undo and then lift it. I used glue, so you just, you know, you got to slide under there and just be careful. And as you're sliding, sort of pushing down toward the cardstock and away from the designer paper so you don't come through. Yeah, okay. Yay, done, done. Now we're on to this one. Okay. We're getting close, guys. I love this. This is my favorite page, without a doubt. And I don't even have the tags in yet. I just really love the way this page came together. I think it was the first page I designed, even though it's not the first one in the book. Sometimes I'll design the page and figure out where it goes in the book later. I should dry fit that first. Somebody said that was a good idea, dry fitting. Oh yeah, it was me. Before I bother to ink it, since I'll just have to re-ink it. It's good. I'm looking at the time that I've recorded.